Well, hello everybody. My name is Roy Cohen. I am going to be hosting this edition of the Community Forum show. And I am thrilled to have as my guest Attorney Robert Jubinville, who is also a member of the Governor's Council in Boston. Attorney Jubinville started his law practice in 1979, and he's considered one of the most successful, respected, and sought-after criminal lawyers in Massachusetts. Being a former Massachusetts State Police trooper and a detective gives him a very unique and important perspective in handling criminal cases. He has successfully handled in the past some of the most serious and complex high-profile criminal cases in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Councillor, welcome back.
Nice to be back.
It's been a couple of years, and last time you didn't have that title on, and now you got it. And in 2012, Attorney Jubinville won a seat on the Massachusetts Governor's Council in his third attempt. It took him 3 times, but I'm sure it was well worth it. Let's start off with a simple question. What is the Governor's Council for those who may not know, and how many members are there?
There are 8 members to the Governor's Council, and it is the creation of John Adams in the Constitution of 1780 as a check and balance on a powerful governor. Mm-hmm. So what it's become over the years is the most important thing we do is we have to approve and vote in all the judicial officers in the Commonwealth, along with other positions, to the parole board and the industrial accident board. Mm-hmm. So the governor nominates people for these powerful positions, and they have to get a majority vote of the Governor's Council, or they do not get the job.
Okay, and as a member of the Governor's Council, as the attorney just said, they vote on the confirmation of judges and clerk magistrates to our courts, and also members of the parole board, you said? Yes. So you guys are kind of busy, yes, I would assume.
Yeah.
Judges who seek confirmation from the Governor's Council must demonstrate understanding of the breadth of the drug issue, because only then they can make wise decisions about the individuals who come before them. Historically, those proven to need treatment, not incarceration. Once confirmed, are judges, are they appointed for life?
They used to be for life, and that was John Adams' idea also, but back in the late 70s, there was a constitutional change where they wanted judges, they changed it to they had to retire at the age of 70. Mm-hmm. So that's what's happened. So they can sit until they're 70, and then they have to retire.
I know that judges are screened very carefully by the council. But what happens if along the road you find a judge really isn't doing the job the right way? Is there any way for that judge to be removed?
There is a way to remove judges. It has to be a bill of redress in the House of Representatives, has to be filed and voted upon. And if there's enough votes, then the judge would then go to the state Senate and have a trial. And basically, if he was found by the senators, they voted against him, he'd be impeached and removed.
Has that happened?
It hasn't happened in my memory, and I don't recall it. The last person that was impeached and removed was, in fact, the Governor's Council in the early 40s.
Okay, so as a member of the council, citing a lack of sufficient legal experience, which I would find it hard to believe that a judge would be appointed without legal experience, you voted against Governor Patrick's Superior Court nominee. I guess that was Brockton District Court Judge Angel Kelly Brown. And you stated that you were concerned about lawyers on the parole board using it as a stepping stone to judgeships.
Yes.
Did that person become appointed? I mean, you're going up against...
Judge Brown became a Superior Court judge. My issue with Judge Brown, I mean, she was in a district court. She was a judge in a district court, and I liked her. But the Superior Court is a different animal, and it's a real jewel of our court system. Mm-hmm. And the amount of work from the district court to the Superior Court is enormous. You've got to be an excellent reader, an excellent writer, researcher on the Superior Court, because you write so much. Mm-hmm. So on Judge Brown, I just didn't feel she had enough experience to go to the Superior Court.
Has she proven you wrong?
I haven't been following her. I haven't had much input. I've never been before her since she's been on. I assume she's doing a fairly good job. I haven't heard any complaints about her, so I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad not to hear complaints.
Who would you hear complaints from if you were going to? Would it be the Board of Bar Overseers?
No, because I'm in court every day, that's my practice. Every day I'm in a court somewhere in the Commonwealth. And you hear about judges, from lawyers, from prosecutors, from clerks of courts, and people. They tell you, courthouse people tell you about judges. So I get a lot of calls about judges that I voted on. And sometimes, you know, what I've learned on this business is that a person comes to the council after being nominated, and our hearings are all recorded and taped, so people can go in and see questions I've asked.
Are they open to the public?
Yes. So they kind of look to find out what I've done, so they prepare themselves, and for other counselors too. So they answer the questions the way they think we want them to be answered, and then they go off and become a judge. And what I've learned is you never know how somebody is affected by the perception of power when they get a robe. Can be the best nominee. Everybody talks good of them. They get a robe, they go off on the bench. And there are some that I have been receiving complaints of for 2 years. I can't believe you voted for this fella. So the point is, you don't know when they get confirmed how they will be, how they will change.
Have you had any experience with the Board of Bar Overseers?
I have, yeah.
Do you find them to be fair and equitable?
I do find them to be pretty fair and equitable. Yeah, I do. I think sometimes they've been heavy-handed with some of the lawyers that have been brought up to the board, and I don't like to see that. But yeah, it's a regulatory agency to rein in lawyers that are supposedly doing things wrong. But sometimes I have noted they have been over the top in their discipline, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Judges don't go to the Board of Bar Overseers. Usually the way it starts for judges, somebody makes a complaint to the Judicial Conduct Commission.
Right.
And that commission then does some investigation and makes a ruling one way or the other, and then proposes or suggests some sort of penalties, and then it finally gets up to the Supreme Judicial Court. And if they uphold it, fine. They don't have the power to remove a judge. They would then send the report over to the legislature, and the legislature would either, vote a bill of redress. But by then, since I've been a lawyer, every judge that has had issues or problems, because there's so many steps, they usually withdraw and resign before they go all the way, because they know what's in store. So they resign.
Interesting. When I invited you to come on the show several weeks ago, it was just to have a conversation and catch up with you with the changes that have gone on in your life. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing these headlines created by something you wanted to do. And we're talking about, you're an advocate for reforming mandatory minimum drug sentences.
I am.
I guess you mentioned that nonviolent drug offenders, it costs the same to incarcerate them as it does the real bad guys. Was it $45,000 a year?
Approximately, yes.
To house, feed, and guard a single inmate per year. And you think that the money is better spent on treatment programs?
I do. Look, from a perspective of the taxpayers in Massachusetts, incarcerating somebody is enormously expensive. And the more you incarcerate, the longer you incarcerate, very expensive. So these minimum mandatories, which take the discretion away from a judge who is the best one to decide what penalty somebody should suffer, who is independent and can make that decision, it is taking that discretion away and giving it to the police and the district attorney's office. And in a democracy, I'm not for that. I think judges are quite able to make those decisions with everything in front of them. So I'm not for minimum mandatories. I don't think they've worked at all, aside from being very expensive.
They're not being implemented, from what I can see. And it's a subject away from what we're going to talk about. But possession of guns, that's supposed to be, or the use of guns in a crime.
Yep.
Minimum mandatory
Yep.
of what, a year?
To possess 18 months now. If you possess
When's
a
the
gun.
last time somebody was put
Yeah,
away for 18
it
months?
happens, but you don't hear about it a lot, and it's not. Minimum mandatories are selective in the sense that a district attorney decides whether or not somebody shouldn't be indicted for one. And then the judge doesn't have discretion to change that or dismiss it or lower it or whatever. So to me, I'm not in favor of minimum mandatories. I don't know what we get out of them. I haven't seen any good results from them other than locking somebody up for 2 or 5 or 10 or 15 years. And it may be that some people deserve that. But to me, a judge should decide that, not a prosecutor. Mm-hmm. As good as the prosecutors are, they prosecute. So I'm not in favor of minimum mandatories. I think we should, and it's been a trend now throughout the country. When you have states like Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi doing away with minimum mandatories, and they are so conservative down there, and we're supposed to be this liberal state here and leading the way in justice and prison reform and all that. I think we should take a good hard look at those.
What about the states that have this three-strike law? 3 times a year
No,
gone?
I'm not in favor of that. And of course, California started that, and they now have scrapped that.
They don't do that anymore?
No, because they found out there was, I think one of the first persons convicted of that was a fellow who was homeless, and he stole socks out of a department store.
His third offense?
And it was his third felony.
Boy.
And he got like a life sentence. And they realized, this isn't what we meant to have happen here. So they have reformed that. And Massachusetts has, under Governor Patrick, has instituted a similar type 3 strikes, which I'm not in favor of the 3 strikes.
It is, they did?
Massachusetts, yeah, we have it.
So don't steal socks.
Don't steal socks.
Especially if it's your 3rd time around. What about, I understand that there's a lack of progress in your mind about the ongoing effect to combat the growing opioid crisis in the Bay State. And that I hear that you wanted to criminalize heroin use in an effort to reduce jail overcrowding and, quote, save lives. Something that I also did some reading about on the internet, and there's not a whole lot of people that support what you want to do, so I know you've got an uphill battle.
Right.
What's the story with that?
Well, my point was, I've been in the court system now for 38 years, and we have been involved in the war on drugs for 45 years. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's anybody with a rational mind that can say it's been a success. In fact, just the opposite. My opinion is that war has been lost decades ago.
Why?
It hasn't stopped the influx of drugs into this Commonwealth one bit. If anything, there's more here. You and I can buy heroin today just about any city or town in Massachusetts. Most high schools you can buy it at. You can buy your cocaine, marijuana, heroin. It's readily available for anybody seeking it. So if that's the case, I guess after spending trillions of dollars on the war on drugs, isn't it about time we look at something different? I think somebody said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. If anything, drugs are worse than ever in the Commonwealth.
Where's it coming in?
It's coming in everywhere.
Is there a main?
We got dealers all over the place because there's money involved.
Okay, but there's a starting point. Is it the border between Mexico and the States?
Well, I would imagine some of it's that coming in that way. I mean, they got the big marijuana industry down there, and that's what's causing a lot of crime and killings. They say they've had more killings on the border over marijuana than there was in the Mexican Revolution. But you're talking about a $25 billion industry coming from Mexico in marijuana. And who's buying it? Citizens of the United States. And you're not going to stop them from buying it. Can't be done.
So what's the answer?
Well, you've got to start thinking outside the box here and thinking of another alternative. So I guess you have two alternatives. You can either legalize it and regulate it, like you do cigarettes and alcohol, which are vices and cause a lot of problems in our society, or you can decriminalize it and regulate it. So my position was, when I gave the governor and the lieutenant governor a letter to that effect, was let's talk about it. We shouldn't be too afraid to talk about it. Let's put everything on the table and see what's worked and what hasn't worked. Let's explore countries that have changed their policies on drugs. Portugal, 12 years now they've had decriminalization of drugs. They had a terrible drug problem in that country. They decriminalized it. If you read about the advantages to the money they have saved in arrests, prosecution, and incarceration, more than pays for all the treatment that people are getting in Portugal today. Their addiction rates are way down. Their crime is way down. People aren't selling it on the street because it's still illegal to do that, and you can get heavy sentences. But when you decriminalize it, it kind of takes some money out of it for dealers. You know, I say, what if somebody's addicted to heroin? Why do we force them to buy it from some guy on the street that doesn't care about them and gives them stuff that they die from? Why can't that person walk into a public health facility in Massachusetts and get what they need so they don't steal for that day?
Isn't that what's going on with methadone clinics?
Well, methadone's clinic is, in fact, in Portugal, they use two mainly to combat is methadone and Suboxone. But methadone clinics have a bad rap in Massachusetts. And I also thought they weren't too well until the last few years, and I have come full circle on them. Think about it. Methadone was invented in the 30s for the sole purpose of getting people off of heroin and onto methadone. Methadone is addictive, but it's less addictive than heroin. So the thought was, look, we'll get you off heroin, we'll get you on methadone, and then wean you off. It's a lot easier to get you off of that. So it's been around for a while, and I'll tell you, some good methadone clinics in Massachusetts are worth their weight in gold. Think of it. If you could wave a wand tomorrow and every heroin addict was a methadone addict, think of the differences that would happen. It's legal, no more arrests, 70 to 80% of what's going through our court system is gone, no incarceration, no breaking into houses. They don't have to. They get it at the clinics. A sea change would take place with that. Some people stay on methadone all their life. Some don't. Most don't. Most get off, get weaned off. So to me, I think there should be methadone clinics, and dozens of them in each county and in every courthouse. What's wrong with, if you're going to keep arresting kids, bring them into a courthouse and say, okay, you're addicted, we've determined that. Go downstairs and start the methadone program. In 2 years, when you complete it, we will dismiss these charges and they won't be on your criminal record. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
I can't find anything wrong with it.
Do we have the capacity to handle a large influx of people seeking treatment like that?
Well, we'd have to set up more methadone clinics.
Yeah. How long would that take, and who's going to pay for that?
Well, let me tell you, we would get much more out of that and a lot cheaper than doing what we're doing now. I mean, we tie up our courts every day with 70 to 80% of people who are addicted. Everybody tells me it's a medical condition. I say, I agree with that. What other medical condition do we treat in our court system? No, we don't treat any. Court systems I love. I've made my living out of them, but they're designed to punish. That's what they do. And when you bring people who are addicted to heroin, and they've committed no other crime other than possess heroin, they get on probation. They pay $65 a month for supervision fee. Today they get virtually no supervision. They come in once a month and pee into a cup. If they fail, some probation officer may say, Judge, I want to put them in jail. For doing nothing other than taking a drug. Didn't hurt anybody else. And you know, some judges will do that.
Do they give them methadone in jail?
I don't think there's any methadone clinics in jails. that I've
Well, what do
heard
they
of.
do with a person who's high on heroin or whatever?
Well, the traditional way is you got to be detoxed, and then you go to programs. We don't have enough programs. We don't have enough beds for them.
So how are you going to have, if you don't have enough programs or whatever, how are you going to have enough places for them to go to for treatment?
Well, you've got to set up enough methadone clinics so that it's readily available. But think about it. As people get older, as people get off of heroin and get off of methadone, they're now not in the system anymore. So over the years, once you see, to me, you got to start an education program, heavy. First grade, second grade, every 12 every year that you're in school.
Mm-hmm.
And you will cut down on addiction like we did on cigarettes. Still there, a lot less kids smoking than they ever did.
And a lot more expensive.
A lot more expensive, but a lot of education to these kids.
Right.
So we've got to do that. That's got to be a robust plan to educate these kids about the dangers of heroin, the dangers of drugs. But in the end, if they want it, it's pretty hard to stop them from getting it.
Mm-hmm.
But most won't. The ones that are addicted, though, you got to treat them. They're either going to be addicted to heroin and buy it on the street, and when they don't have money, they're going to break into a house to get it. Because people have this idea that, well, why don't they just stop? You can't stop if you're a heroin addict. You and I need air. We'd break that door down to get it air if it stopped all of a sudden. It's the same with a heroin addict. You can't just stop. That addiction is so powerful. When you need it, you will do anything to get it. Anything. So to me, we've been doing the same thing all these years. I see these kids getting sent to jail. I think it's a disgrace. Any kid sitting in a cage today that failed a urine test. Because relapses are part of recovery, whether you're an alcoholic or whether you're a drug addict. A lot of our people in the court system don't understand that. They get all upset about a failed urine test. It's part of the recovery. We have people that come in for probation. They said they're going to be tested. They run out because they've been using. They run out in the street and they're gone for 2-3 weeks and they get arrested on the warrant and they come back. I said to somebody in the Holyoke District Court, where I grew up, I said, why is it that people are running out of these courthouses? I thought we were going to help them. We scare them and they run out. And then when you get them and bring them back, you want to put them in jail. Why is that happening? I don't know hospitals that do that you go in for some sort of a medical issue and you run out in fear. We're not equipped, our court system isn't equipped to handle it effectively at all.
Big problem.
Yeah, big problem.
When you had a conversation with the governor and lieutenant governor recently, what was their reaction to what you're proposing?
Well, the governor said that he was not, I forget how he put it, not there yet, or not going to get into
Not even
that.
worth studying? Or
Well, no, but he did say we're not going to, he did agree with me that we're not going to arrest our way out of it.
Yeah.
And I've been heard that by many people that have come to the governor's council, and I say, well, if we're not going to arrest our way out of it, why are we still arresting these kids? And giving them Corey records, and they can't get jobs, and they lose their licenses. Why are we doing that?
Because they broke the law.
Right. Yeah, because it's the law. So decriminalizing it. Now in Portugal, if you read it, when they decriminalize, let's say, heroin, if you have a gram or less of heroin on you, and a cop stops you, he'll take the heroin, he'll give you a summons to a board. I forget what they call it, but it's not a court. When you go there at a public health facility, people that are experts will determine the level of addiction you have and decide what kind of help you need. If you have more than a gram, however, it is a criminal matter, and then you get arrested and charged criminally. Same with all of the drugs. If you're over the limit, you get arrested. If you're selling, you get arrested and you pay a heavy penalty. So for the amounts under the limit, you don't get arrested. You get help. To me, I can't imagine why we wouldn't do something like that. But there's a lot of fear in decriminalizing drugs. Heroin, a big stigma to it. People are afraid of it. People say, geez, won't everybody be using it? I said, well, everybody can use it now. You can buy it in any city or town in Massachusetts. But Portugal didn't see a big uptick in use when they did that. A little bit, then it leveled off and it's gone way down. So to me, it's sort of a no-brainer, but for politicians, I realize it's tough for them to get their head around this and to put their toe in the water. And
Why?
well, I don't know. Maybe
The users?
No. Maybe
Well,
they
why not? If you
may-
get something, that their job is to take advice or take suggestions and weigh both sides and do something about it.
Well, sometimes they put their finger in their mouth and hold it up and see which way the wind is
Oh.
blowing.
Well,
Unfortunately.
if that were the case, you'd stop doing what you're doing because of all the negative publicity that you're getting.
You know, from that issue of just getting it on the table and talking about it, I got a lot of feedback, a lot of emails, a lot of Facebook stuff. I gotta say, most of it was positive. And some of the fringe people against it were way out there, you know, like we ought to kill all the heroin addicts and
Oh,
that'll solve the problem.
no.
But most people, think about it. I estimate, and I have no scientific study on this, but I'm going to say there's at least 100,000 addicts in Massachusetts. On the average, 16 people are affected by that one addict. That's 1.6 million. We have 6 million people in Massachusetts. About 25% of the population are affected by this drug in one way or another. That's a lot of people saying, hey, how are we going to do this? Can we change this? Can we think about it? And so
Is anybody working with the legislature to change it, add a law that will
not that I know of.
implement it?
Not that I know of.
There's a job for you.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep pushing and keep talking about it. And I think if we can get some people to at least talk about it and study it, you may find there's a way here to structure something that stops this terrible abuse people take because they're addicted to this drug.
You recently sent a letter to Speaker DeLeo suggesting that addicts get released from jail into treatment centers. How does that work?
No, I sent the same letter to the governor that I sent to the Speaker and the President of the Senate.
Okay.
They all got the same letter about talking about decriminalization.
Did they respond?
They didn't, no.
When did you send the letter?
Was it a week, 2 weeks ago?
When do they normally respond?
I don't know. I don't know.
You need more airtime. I know that the big push the other day as a reason to listen to Jim and Marjorie was that you were going to be on the show. And I kept tuning to find you on the radio, and I didn't realize that you were going to be on Jim Browdy's night show. And I happened to check that YouTube video. He gave you a whopping 5 minutes and 53 seconds to talk quickly about your project that you want to do. And he didn't even give you the opportunity to speak as I'm giving you.
You're right. Yeah, no,
I'm giving you an hour.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of time to make the point. You
No,
know?
not at all.
So,
I wish you luck. I mean, I just think that what you're trying to do is an uphill battle. We had a couple of weeks ago. We were honored to have Bob Stoughton on. He's the former head of the Drug Enforcement Agency, and he didn't minimize the impact of heroin, but he said the biggest problem that we have in society these days is pills. That kids will go into a medicine cabinet and start taking out pills and doing them. He said that's what's killing them. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
well, I agree with this. I agree that doctors, medical doctors, or people with prescription pads are one of the biggest problems now in this epidemic. OxyContin was the seeds, that pill was the seeds that laid the groundwork for this epidemic. And if you read the history of OxyContin, it started to be noticeable down in West Virginia area. And this drug was made for the last 4 months or 5 months of somebody who was terminally ill.
Right.
That company said, why should we limit our profit, which is millions, if we can push this drug for any pain. They hired about 400 graduates of college, and they gave them a briefcase, and they sent them out to doctors' offices throughout the country. And they pushed it on doctors. And doctors now prescribe OxyContin for a toothache, for a rear end ache, for any ache. And I have had discussions with doctors and say, you know what this has caused. You know the death and destruction it's caused. Why would you ever give that to somebody? Not knowing whether they'll get addicted from the first pill they take. Steve Lynch, this committee, back in I think 06 or 07, did a heck of an investigation on this and determined 53% of the people that take it by the instructions of the doctor get addicted to it. It's an opiate, it's just like heroin.
That was another eye-opener that Mr. Stoughton came up with, that he proclaimed that doctors really know nothing about the pills they're prescribing.
Yeah.
They only know what the sales reps tell them, and that's exactly what you're saying. They hired 400 reps to go out and push the pills. And I had the personal experience of being told how to handle a certain type of medicine. And the doctor was way off base. So I did what Mr. Stutman suggested. I had a conversation with my pharmacist, and they're very free with the information, and they took care of the suspicions that I had, that one of the pills that I was taking really wasn't doing the job that it was supposed to be doing, yet this is what was prescribed by the doctor. And that's scary.
It's scary. If you Google mass physicians, OxyContin prescriptions, you will get a list of all the doctors and the amount of prescriptions they pump out with this drug. Some of them at the top, I don't know how you do anything else other than sit at your desk for 8 hours doing prescription and giving them out. It would be impossible to give that many out.
They make a lot of money.
Well, I'd like to see whether any of them get some sort of a bonus from the drug company for pushing this poison, because that's what it is.
How do we find out?
Well, I'd like to see a bill in the legislature that they have to disclose twice a year what they get from drug companies. I'd like to see that.
One other thing that's been in the news lately, and I'm not sure what the overall reaction is going to be, is what Mayor Walsh is doing. He's banning the use of chewing tobacco every place, including Fenway Park. And people are saying, really? How are they going to enforce that? They're going to call out the National Guard?
Yeah, whenever I think, and I think it's well-meaning.
Sure it is.
Geez, I can't imagine somebody, the mouth cancer and throat cancer from that stuff is incredible. However, it's on the market, people can buy it, and if they want to put it in their mouth, you're not going to stop them. They put cigarettes in their mouth, and they get cancer of the throat, and they die. But to me, how are you going to enforce this? What are you going to do? You're going to have people walking through Fenway Park looking for somebody putting it in their mouth and arrest them? They're not hurting anybody else, they're hurting themselves.
Sure.
So it's very tough to regulate it, and when you do regulate it like that, you end up with a heroin issue, you end up with a marijuana issue. It goes underground, the price goes up, dealers make a lot of money selling it underground.
Yeah, but it's a question of using it. They can get it, but they can't use it.
And it gets to be unregulated. Now it's regulated. You buy it in the store,
It wasn't, I think Kurt Schilling was involved in that with the mayor, and he thinks he has mouth cancer from chewing tobacco.
Yeah, but I got to believe Kurt Schilling knew when he was putting it in his mouth that people said to him, that's not good for you.
Well, there's a warning printed on the cans,
right, exactly.
just like cigarettes.
Yeah. So now you want to make everybody, you want to turn everybody using it into criminals overnight by a bill.
He wants to become another Mayor Bloomberg.
So whenever you make a law that something is now illegal, you create another class of criminals that weren't criminals the day before. And to me, you can't regulate certain things effectively. We tried alcohol in the 20s. Look what that got us. Al Capone, deaths, killings. Mm-hmm. So we took it out of the criminal statute and then regulated it, and it's certainly as dangerous, I think, as heroin to a lot of people, and it causes a lot of death. But you can't criminalize it and go lock up everybody that's going to have a drink. You can't do it with mouth tobacco, cigarettes, any of those gambling, prostitution. You're regulating morality and criminalizing it. And it's never worked. It's never worked.
So the public reaction to your proposal to legalize heroin, sort of, or decriminalize it, have you taken a toll of
I haven't
where it
done a
stands?
scientific approach of it. Most of the comments I say were positive because most people that have either a loved one or a relative or a friend who's going through the throes of heroin addiction will say, thank you for saying it. We don't want our loved one ending up with in jail. We don't want him getting his license taken away, losing his job. You know, I think the court system, which I love, again, I'll tell you, is very cruel and mean to people who are addicted to heroin. And now I've been told there's a new policy that's coming down the court system, and I didn't think we could be any crueler to people that suffer from this disease, but we're going to be. It's sort of like a shock program. So if you go in and you flunk a urine test, right away you're in jail for however long the judge says.
Oh, why?
Immediately. If you're late for probation, go to jail, a couple of days. So I said to one of the judges, I said, what happens if this person's got a job and a family? You put him in jail for a week, he loses his job. Well,
He shouldn't have done it.
I said, well, you don't lose your job, they lose theirs. So now they're back behind the 8 ball. They can't make the mortgage payments, the rent. It's insanity, you know? And you're going to stuff the jails full of people for 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. But that's where we're going.
This is
We
going
have
to
an
happen.
obsession to incarcerate. Think about it. We're 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's
In jail,
incarcerating people. We have more people under lock and key, than any country that ever existed on earth. Are we that bad that we need to do that?
Oh, we're terrible.
I mean, are people committing crimes more here than they are in Europe or Japan? Or why are we incarcerating this many people? People are people.
So who's putting the effort into doing this?
It started out in Hawaii. It was called the HOPE program. It was the brainchild of a federal judge, which I always think is I always cautious when federal people get involved with these things. They're usually very heavy-handed with people. So they've been doing that out in Hawaii, and somebody thought it would be a good idea. They tried it up in Essex County, and now I'm told they're going to put it out throughout the court system.
Why don't they put in an effort to support you and what you're trying to do?
Obsessed with incarceration.
Yeah, but they have to take a look at the overall picture of what these facilities are housing.
Yeah.
I remember going into the old Dedham jail
Oh, yeah.
30 years ago with
Yeah.
Sheriff Marshall. When I was a member of the Board of Selectmen, I was on the Norfolk County Advisory Board Jail Subcommittee. I spent 12 hours in that place. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was originally built to hold 120 inmates, and it had 250 in
Sure.
there. I think at that particular time, the count changes daily. They were sleeping in the halls, they were sleeping in the boiler room, they were sleeping in the gyms, and all because they're all being sent there without any thought to maybe some other way to punish them. And now you're talking about they're just going to snap and put these people in jail. Where are they going to house them? Are they going to create worse overcrowding conditions that are in place now?
We're going to need a whole bunch of new jails.
Yeah.
And you know something I say to judges that have been around? I say, you have sentenced the same person over 10, 15 years that are addicted. You have put them in jail a half a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
Has it ever stopped the addiction? No.
No.
I said, see, what you don't understand is, and some probation officers sometimes have a problem with it, addictions always trump fear. Always, always, always trump fear. Fear never can beat an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
If it could, we wouldn't have a heroin issue. Everybody would be afraid to go to jail.
After spending 12 hours in that Dedham jail, I'd be afraid to
Of course.
go.
And nobody would go back to that unless they couldn't help it. Nobody. So that's a big issue for us, and hopefully the dialogue starts talking, and little by little we get it out in the open and gain some
You need to get the talk masters involved, and to have them, you know, if they're going to invite you on the show, they've got to give you time to get the whole story out.
Right.
Yeah, 5 minutes and 53 seconds certainly wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll bring you on again. There's a couple other things that I saw in your info pages. We talked about the public reaction to the proposal, and we also got into, is there enough treatment available for those who choose this rather than jail? And you're probably going to say no, but we need to create more space in those areas.
Well, I think there's enough. There are methadone clinics throughout the state. Some run very good, some not run good. So I think we need to, and they can take as many people as you send them. I mean, it's not, they don't have a limit. Some of them have 300 or 400 people every morning coming at 7 in the morning getting their dosage. And
You think there's enough of those clinics around?
we need more. We definitely need more.
For those who don't really know what I'm doing for a living or to help pass time, I work for a transportation company, and we pick up all kinds of people, from the executives down to people who might need treatment.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, there's a couple of people I can think of. One was from Norton, the other one was from Brockton, that needed methadone. And the methadone patient in Brockton, I had to take that person to Boston to a clinic, when there was one right around the corner from them in downtown Brockton.
Why couldn't they go to Brockton?
I don't know, but that just seemed to be an awful waste of money.
Sure.
And
No, you
so I'm wondering if there are enough. The other one that I picked up in Norton had to go to someplace like Woonsocket, Rhode Island or something.
Well, I don't think there is enough, and I think at least in the short run, we ought to make them ubiquitous throughout the state so that people, you know, a lot of people live in sections of this state where there's no transportation.
Right.
But they ought to be, you know, a dozen or a dozen and a half in each county where people can get to them. And
They don't seem to be that complicated.
No, they're not.
You need a nurse. You need
Well,
someone to keep the record.
A good one that's well run, has a doctor on staff, a couple of nurses, people trained in addiction. They regulate the doses to make sure you're okay. Once a month, a doctor looks at you, takes some blood to see your liver's okay. If you fail, if you come in and fail a urine test, and they do give urine tests unannounced, if you fail, they don't throw you out. They don't put you in jail. They understand this. They say, no problem. We'll up your dose, or we'll do this, and more counseling, and we'll get you back on track here. So it's got a lot of positive stuff. And look, if it keeps people working, supporting a family, not getting arrested, not breaking into homes, isn't it worth it?
I would think it would be. They even had, there was another one I was thinking of that in Taunton, a mobile unit.
Yes.
I don't know if they have more of those, but you know, if they can't build something, a mobile unit would be the quick in between.
It would be, and look, you don't need a big space for these things.
No.
So my suggestion was, you know, we have courthouses throughout the state, so we have something built already. Have a room down in a courthouse that you dispense this stuff from.
A couple of other things, quick ones. We only have a few minutes left here. Well, a little bit more than a few. I'm kind of wondering what you meant by this, when heroin hits the white suburbs. Is heroin mainly a problem in the low-income areas? Is that what that's supposed to mean?
No. It was at one time, when you and I were a lot younger. It was...
low-income areas.
Yeah, low income. That's when you heard about it, you know?
Yeah.
But today, it is ubiquitous. It is in every city and town. People are affected. There's no socioeconomic standard anymore. Wealthy.
My child?
Yeah. Wealthy people
Yeah.
have children that are addicted, as poor people do too.
Okay.
And you know something, that's what may change some of this. The more, because let's face it, people that are wealthy have more contacts, have more input into certain things, and politicians may listen to them a little bit more than poor people. I don't believe in that, but I think it's true to some extent. So I think when you have people that have a lot of influence, that have a lot of money, and their kids addicted, help.
You have another point here. Women addicts need treatment, not prison.
Oh yeah, the women issue is really a disgrace. Most
Why?
women end up incarcerated out at Framingham in the state prison.
That's the only place.
It's the only place. Some Bourne House of Correction has a women's section, and I think there's another House of Correction that may have a women's section. But most of them go to Framingham, and you're in there with people that are a lot more criminalized, I'll say.
Well, isn't this true? It's true with all prisons.
Yeah, it is. But the state prison is a place where serious criminals are sent. So, not a house of correction where somebody is doing 2 years or a year or So women have gotten the short end of this stick, and I'll tell you, women are as equally affected by this as men. Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. And it hasn't discriminated against gender. So, we should be taking better care of these women.
Wow. Okay, you'll give me a few minutes to catch my breath. We have some announcements, some
Okay.
public service announcements that we're going to run, and then we'll get back to you with the biggest argument against reforming mandatory minimum sentences.
Okay.
I want to get into that. That looks interesting.
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre, and the crew wants to thank Maxie's Delicatessen. That's at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. They're 781-341-1662. American Cancer Society, yes, they're looking for volunteers. Drive cancer patients to and from their treatments. 1-800-ACS-6662, or just go to www.cancer.org. Ilsa Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market, 2 Park Avenue in Stoughton. For more information, call Christine Gallagher. That's at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. Just ask for Jessica. You'll find her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. Stoughton Penny Saver. Our business is advertising your business, they tell us. 27 Rose Glen Street, Stoughton, 781-344-4833. Community Forum showtimes in Stoughton. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m., Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. All comments and suggestions welcome. Contact us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Community Forum showtimes in Easton. Mondays at 9 p.m., Tuesday at 8 a.m., Wednesdays 3 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. And that too, Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 22. Samaritans, they're at 41 West Street on the 4th floor in Boston, 02111. Their phone number is 617-536-2460. 24-hour helplines for Samaritans, and the number is 877-870-HOPE. That's 877-870-4673. Samaritans, you can find them at 800-252-TEEN. That's 252-8336. Or find them online at SamaritansHope.org.
Thank you, Gary. We got a couple of other ones that we're going to do live here. Stoughton Little Theater, they're presenting Honk at Stetson Hall in South Main Street in Randolph on Friday, the 21st of August, 7:30 p.m., Saturday, August 22nd. 2 shows, 1:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m., and Sunday, August 23rd at 1:30 p.m. You can get your tickets online at Stoughton at www.littletheaterofstoughton.org or at Bob's Food Mart or at the door. And it's adults $15, students or seniors $12, and children under 10, $10. And you'll have a chance to see Bella Coe, and she's going to be the star of that particular show, and I can't wait to see her doing that. She's wonderful. The next one is the Ann Havlin Memorial Blood and Food Drive. It's going to be on Saturday, September 19th, 2015, from 7 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. at the Immaculate Conception Parish, 122 Canton Street in Stoughton. That's Route 27. To donate blood, please make an appointment by calling Tom Havlin at 781-341-0549 or Molly Mills at 781-929-3140 or online mollyann.mills at gmail.com. To donate food, bring non-perishable food items the day of the event. Bob's Food Mart, they're having their 10th annual Kids Day and 6th annual Bob DiMatteo Memorial 5K Run on Sunday, September 27th. The race will begin at 9 a.m. at Bob's Famous Food Mart, 289 Park Street, Route 27 in Stoughton. And the race will end at and is hosted at the Town Spa at 1119 Washington Street, which is Route 138. It's a 1 mile. There's a 1 mile kids race at 8 a.m. from Bob's parking lot. Register now at www.bobsfamous.com. The Stoughton's own farmers market every Saturday between now and October 10th. Stoughton Center Church Green, 790 Washington Street. They feature fresh produce, breads and pastries, fresh fish, and much more. They have live music, weekly giveaways, and easy parking. And if those of you who are using SNAP program, there's double SNAP benefits. No pets, please, per the Board of Health, www.stoughtonfarmersmarket.org. And our guest of honor today, Attorney Robert Jubinville. He's a governor's counsel. His office is at 487 Adams Street in Milton, Massachusetts. You can reach him at 800-828-9010 or online, jubinville@comcast.net, or the website, www.jubinvillelaw.com. That's it on that. Okay, the biggest argument against reforming mandatory minimum sentences may be completely wrong. You have a suggestion, and that's an area where if they grab somebody who's pretty bad and they make a deal, is that what it is?
Yeah.
To try to get to the kingpin, and how long a life expectancy would that person have if he's going to turn a dime on that person?
Well, let me tell you that he probably wouldn't be able to get life insurance. But
You're not
you know
gonna write the
something,
policy.
one of the biggest abused laws in the Commonwealth has been the school zone violation of selling drugs within the school zone.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be 1,000 feet. And the first case was out in Pittsfield. In fact, the guy came before us for a pardon. He was in high school. He brought in some marijuana for him and his friend, charged with distribution. The DA's office wouldn't break it down. And he did 2 years in jail. That law has been so abused throughout the Commonwealth that Governor Patrick did sign a legislation that reduced it to 300 feet. 300 yards, I'm sorry. And it was 1,000 yards. So it was from any location of a school or park or playground. So if the school had some land connected to it, and the farthest point from that to where the drug was would get you into the school zone violation. It was so abused. Deals were made to buy drugs from people who were brought into the school zone, bought the drug, and then were arrested for buying in a school zone. In Boston, most judges wouldn't convict anybody of that charge because anywhere in Boston you're in a school zone.
Mm-hmm.
But what it did was you'd arrest somebody, they charge them with school zone, and then say, look, you got to work for us. You got to become an informant. So if you don't, you're going to jail for 2 years. So that was abused quite a bit, and people went to jail.
No takers.
Well, there were some people that did it, took it, but that's a hard road too, and it's a dangerous one, and we shouldn't be doing that to people. We shouldn't be saying, we're going to hang this over your head for you to work. And again, the war on drugs. Complete failure. We've never, we shouldn't sink another nickel into the war on drugs. We've sunk trillions and trillions. And we're listening to the words of Dick Nixon, who started it, because it was a political speech for political votes, tough on crime, tough on drugs, and we've been stuck with it ever since. And it's time to end it, in my opinion.
One last point, perhaps a bit of repetition. As a member of the council, the governor's council, somebody comes before you who is not well qualified to become a judge due to lack of experience in a certain field. I mean, are you looking for candidates to be well-rounded? They're street smart, or what happens if a person comes before you and doesn't have the experience in a very important area?
Well, to me, I do my own investigation on the individual as much as I can, If you don't have experience in a courthouse or court system, then I'm not too inclined to vote for you. If you're too young, I'm not too inclined to vote for you. I do believe with age comes wisdom for most of us, and I like to see an older judge in their 50s, even 60s. People sometimes have gotten judgeships at 35 and 36, and that's a long time on a bench. And you get wore out in 10 years, and you are just a problem. So I like to see somebody with those qualifications. I like to see somebody that knows what it's like to be in front of courts and judges. I like to see somebody who's well-rounded. And, you know, I assume everybody that's sent to us by a governor is qualified in the law. You know, if they're a lawyer, although you don't have to be a lawyer, but nobody's been appointed that hasn't been a lawyer in many, many years. But, you know, they're smart, they're intelligent, they graduated from law school, and they know the law. But if they've sat in an office for all their life in a big firm, I don't know whether you're ready to go on our court system. That's a different animal. So I like to see somebody with experience in our system. We have a pool of wonderful lawyers, on prosecutors, defense lawyers, civil lawyers that are in courts all the time. That we get a lot of people that would be qualified. So when I get somebody in front of me and that it isn't qualified, I got a problem with that.
Are the qualifications to become a judge in writing? Or is it in
The
state?
governor has, most governors have a guideline, like you got to be practicing more than 10 years. I think that's the only qualification. Obviously be a lawyer, be in good standing with the bar. But that's about the only qualification.
I mean, you came to this, your life is full of qualifications. You've done a lot of things. You were a state police, you were a detective, you were a whole bunch of things, and this helped to bring you into the courts with pretty good knowledge of life. But just saying there maybe are judges who are being appointed who don't have the background that really should be used.
There are some, yes. There's some that I think lack the common sense needed.
That's a shame.
The compassion that are needed, the
Yeah.
temperament. I mean, nothing worse than a judge yelling at people from the bench.
Oh, I've seen that.
Nothing worse than that. And judges today that don't know about addictions, I'm not going to vote for them, because 70–80% of what they're going to see is addictions. And I say to them, you don't know about addictions, how are you going to help?
That's a shame. 7-1, huh?
How are you going to help?
Thank you very much for coming on.
My pleasure.
We'll look forward to having you on again.
Anytime, Roy.
Thank you, sir.